111 people have died after flash flooding swept through parts of central Texas as search and rescue teams continue to look for more than 170 people still missing. Haley Meyer has the details from Kerrville, Texas.
The damage immeasurable when you talk about cars floating 20 feet into the tree branches still. Cabins from local youth camps, a big staple of this region as well, getting swept away. And unfortunately, Camp Mystic losing multiple young girls and camp counselors to the floodwaters there. At this point, though, the flood came so fast and so early, and that was the biggest piece as to why this was so deadly. Multiple rain gauges in the area reported 20 inches of rainfall, but this area is so quick to drain all of that into the Guadalupe River, which is why it only took about 45 minutes to an hour for some of these spots to rise.
At least 5 campers and 1 counselor from Camp Mystic have still not been found. Democrats continued the heated rhetoric and threats against immigration enforcement officers Tuesday following recent attacks on ICE and Border Patrol facilities in Texas. Democrats are turning immigration enforcement into class warfare with comments like these.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons.
This is Gestapo-like behavior.
Folks getting snatched off the street by secret police who are wearing masks.
And you compare them to those nondescript thugs who grabbed that student, that graduated student. It does look like a Gestapo operation.
Kyle Scheidler with the Center for Security Policy says the left committing violence against the rule of law is nothing new.
And so this has been building for years. We have seen Antifa members preparing to escalate with firearms, with fire bombs, conducting attacks against Tesla dealerships, pregnancy resource centers, churches, and the like. So we realized that Antifa was going to escalate. But when you have rhetoric like this, when you have rhetoric comparing federal law enforcement to secret police, to the Gestapo, what you are telling somebody who is a dedicated, indoctrinated anti-fascist is that they must use violence in response. This is the core of their belief system, that you fight fascism with violence.
Democrats have also criticized ICE officers for wearing masks during their operations. Here's California Senator Alex Padilla.
No face coverings, no masks. I mean, if you're out in the streets in Los Angeles, whether you're a citizen, a legal resident, or an undocumented immigrant, and somebody without these identifiers is approaching you, masked up, coming out of a marked car, you have no idea what's going on.
Fox News contributor Joe Concha says Democrats are playing a dangerous game to try and rile up their base.
Here we have Senators Cory Booker, Alex Padilla attempting to put ICE agents in a situation where their identities are known that puts them in danger and their families in danger.
A pastor is getting praise for calling out an Illinois school board for the kind of books it's placing in front of students. Bob Kellogg reports.
Pastor John Amanchukwu didn't mince words when he addressed the board members at the Shepherd Middle School in Deerfield. Lori Higgins, who formerly taught at Deerfield, says Amanchukwu is particularly upset by the porn literature in the school's library.
And he told them that they should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this kind of smut and filth. These were his words. He called them cowards and punks and said for allowing males in girls' restrooms and locker rooms.
Higgins would like to see more Christian men unabashedly speaking out against leftist propaganda in public schools.
I do believe that men have been cowed and emasculated by embracing feminism, but Christian men should be standing strongly and firmly for truth, even if it's personally costly.
She adds that women and children are paying the high price for the assault on masculinity that emerged from the feminist movement. I'm Bob Kellogg.
More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildmon and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to this program. And it's Wednesday, July the 9th, 2025, in case you were wondering. And I have three gentlemen here, and I use that term lightly, in studio with me to discuss the issues of the day, and they include Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
I'm one of the issues of the day. I listen.
Yes, you are, my friend.
Bring it.
The world centers around Ed, says Ed.
If you don't believe me, just ask me.
And Wesley Wildmon. Good morning, Wesley.
Good morning.
And Fred Jackson.
Hey there.
Abraham Hamilton III will join us at the bottom of the hour. We've got a big story to talk to him about regarding the IRS, right, Fred?
That is correct. The IRS has had a change of heart when it comes to...
They have a heart.
Well, you ever seen the Grinch? The Grinch Who Stole
Yeah,
Christmas?
the IRS got one of those.
Anybody's heart can change.
Well, during the Biden years, there was a lawsuit launched against the IRS with regards to the Johnson Amendment that was passed that said pastors could not endorse openly political candidates. Well, apparently the IRS has had a change of heart on that front.
Yeah, I think they ruled that they said in their, I think this was almost a verbatim, the Democrats have been doing it for years. Now we're going to let Republicans do it.
I missed that line.
End of quote. That was the IRS director. I think maybe I got that wrong. I don't know.
But Abe's going to talk about that,
and
then one additional legal issue of importance. We thought we'd bring in the big guns, to talk legal.
Absolutely.
Because the three stellar guys can't do it.
Well, we can discuss it, but we can't speak authoritatively.
Okay.
Right.
Abe
we can wing it.
We can.
We can wing it. We can wing it on law stuff.
We can on that there law stuff.
There.
According to my mom, I gave up my career as a lawyer to go into the ministry.
That's right.
You broke the news to her, right? This is what?
Yes.
40 years ago.
Oh. Yeah, probably 45. She would tell people.
Mid-20th century.
She said, my son left his career in law to...
Oh, when she was introducing you to people?
To introduce me to people.
Okay, she would say that?
She would say, my son is in the ministry. He left his career as a lawyer to go into the ministry. And I would say right then and there, Mom, I was never a lawyer.
Right.
And she said, well, you went to law school.
Right.
And I said, no, I didn't go to law school. I was pre-law in undergraduate, and then I became a Christian.
Besides, being in law school and being a lawyer means I was on the devil's team. I switched over to God's team.
That's right.
Huh?
So I still cannot speak authoritatively on the law.
Right. All right. Well, listen, thank you for joining. Wesley, if folks want to join us on their internet, how can they do that?
I would encourage everyone to download our American Family Radio app or AFR app. Also, you can go to afr.net, and afr.net, there you can stream and listen to all our radio programs live throughout the day, as well as go back and get our newscast and get any other form of content that we put on our radio that you may have heard earlier in the day or later in the day. Go to afr.net and also download our AFR app as well.
Fred, what's the first story?
Well, let's first give an update on with regards to the recovery operations that are underway there in Central Texas. Now, various news media are giving slightly different figures, but the death toll, at least according to the AP early this morning, 111 confirmed dead, 170 they're saying still missing. And if you look at the images and the video coming out from that area, you can understand why that the search may, to some people, be going slowly. But if you look at the extent of the debris, the trees, the cars, the houses that are just piled up all the way down a very long 40, 50-mile stretch of that Guadalupe River. It is, and they have to go very slowly. I mean, the searchers, their lives are in danger if they start moving things and things start to collapse.
Right.
So it's there. Now, Governor Abbott held a news conference yesterday, and he gave out a phone number. I don't have that with me, but he gave out a phone number because it is possible amongst those declared still missing that there are some people who may have been camping along that river. We've been talking about there are many camps. It's a beautiful area. It's possible some people had left the area even before the flooding, but they haven't called in to say, I'm fine. So that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So they're holding out that kind of hope. But Governor Abbott says his team, the recovery people, are going to stay there until they find everybody. The next big event is going to be President Trump and First Lady Melania plan to visit the area on Friday. And already, though, right off the bat, Governor Abbott said the White House made a phone call and said, whatever you guys need to help out with this, we are sending in the federal resources. And that was one of the big things that was coming out of the North Carolina fiasco.
Right.
After the hurricane there, that FEMA was very slow to move. Well, not this time. And also Homeland Security, Kristi Noem has also said, everything that the state needs to help in this recovery is going to be made available. Also saw an interview yesterday with Samaritan's Purse, Ed Graham, who heads that, and they're also making resources available right now.
I'm looking at the video footage of this, what we're talking about now. I'm not sure if that's the most recent or not, but it seems to me like the water's still not completely back to the lower levels that it was before the flood. So do you know if that's true or not? If it's gotten back to the...
Oh, it's backed off.
I know it's backed off a lot, but I wonder
There's probably water, once a river like that overflows, even when it starts to recede, it still leaves water puddled up. And so...
I guess the point I was getting to is that you just got to get back to normal before you can do I would think before you could clear the area or make sure that
It's receded quite a bit.
That's good.
Yeah.
Here's I hate to even talk about this because it's so hard to talk about, but I mean, let's face it, you got 161 missing or so.
That's the figure that Fox is giving now.
And I know that, you always want to hold out hope that maybe they're still alive and they haven't been able to contact, but the chances of that with all these people searching is almost zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're talking about situations like Fred mentioned where people were camping and they got out and they're just glad to be, and they don't know they're being counted as missing. But to your point, Tim, I think at this point it's now recovery.
Yes.
It's a body recovery going on.
I'm
rather
just
than
going to say they're going to find people all down the river. And
At 50 or 60 miles, that's a lot of ground to cover. Remember we had that one of those initial stories about the girl who was rescued. She was up in a tree.
That's right.
But someone said that was 20 miles downstream from where she was
That's what I read.
Swept
that was
away.
The first story.
Yeah.
20. When I heard that, I thought 20 miles away. That means, again, we're trying to be sensitive here, but there were bodies swept away that kept going. And so they're going to have to go through that entire 50 or 60 mile
even
area.
A boat ride for 20 miles would take forever.
That's what I thought. I thought that sounds impossible because you would think you would be injured or killed by going down a raging river for 20 miles without a raft or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? It sounds impossible, but I did read the same story. I was also reading last night. There's so much heartache here and tragedy. There was I read two stories about two separate sisters. Two stories, but they were separate stories about. One of them was about two twins, and the other one was about sisters who weren't twins, but they were both
close in age
at the camps.
Yeah,
and they were both killed.
Is that the ones who were holding hands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there was a tragic story last night about a gentleman and his wife who were camping in an RV, And by the time they learned what was going on, the water was about to sweep them away, and he was calling
his kids
to say he loved them, and he didn't think they were going to make it. That's what his exact words were, and they didn't.
And my I've read that story.
Did you read that story?
I read that, and I think he was there with his girlfriend. I think she was calling her mom. He was calling his kids.
Right.
They didn't answer. He had to leave that as a message.
Right. Yes, that's right.
On voicemail.
That's right.
Very. Listen, there's no dress rehearsals for that kind of thing, and that's just terrifying to think about it happening to your loved ones, and heartbreaking to hear about it happening to someone else.
I was just going to say it killed more people thus far than any previous tornado or hurricane or anything in that area, is what I was reading.
Oh, in Texas?
Yes.
Well, with everything else, you do get warnings for the most part. A tornado, you get, and they did get a warning here. But the problem was, it was in the middle of the night, talking about between 1 and 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, everybody's in bed.
Yeah.
And the counselors didn't have their cell phones. They weren't allowed to have their cell phones.
And neither were the counselors.
Right. Yeah. And most people, they have their I know I do. I don't have my cell phone on in the middle of it. It's on silent if it's on at all. But usually it's on silent. And that's what everybody does. So
that's not calculated. You got to really remember that when you go to criticizing what people could have done differently. Is that I don't know if there's anything between 1 and 4 o'clock.
This is a once in 100 years.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I haven't read that anywhere. That's what I'm saying. This is a once in a lifetime tragedy that happened because the rain came down so fast and the river was rising about. What was it about? It rose 45 feet. No, 26 feet in 45 minutes.
45 minutes. Yeah.
So you're talking about approximately what, 5 inches, 6 inches for every minute? For every minute? Is that right?
That's
approximate.
Just from the videos I've seen, that looks like, and that's insane in terms of if that's accurate. 5 or 6
inches for every minute.
For every minute, you're looking at the water just.
You're watching
it.
Right.
Get to the place within minutes where you can't do anything.
Right. Like filling up a sink. I mean, if you cut on a faucet and close it up and you watch it fill up, that's how fast the river
coming up. Yeah, exactly. All right, but still there'll be people who are trying. I've seen some of these lefties saying, "Oh, this is on Elon Musk and Donald Trump because they cut the
that's crazy
weather people."
Well, there was a couple claims, but that one was the first one, and that one was the first one to be debunked because in most cases they actually were overstaffed, so they pulled the trigger without even. They should have looked at that one because they had 2 more people than was necessary at the time this happened than they needed to do their jobs. Talking about the local weathers.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. All right, next story, Fred.
Well, we've done stories about the National Education Association, which is the nation's largest teachers union. Well, they've been meeting this week in Portland, Oregon. And one of the decisions they have made is to cut off their very long relationship that they've had with the Anti-Defamation League. The Anti-Defamation League, a large Jewish group, pro-Israel group, they have been providing schools with material about the Holocaust, about Israel, about the history of the Jewish people, etc., etc. Well, they have made a decision, the teachers union, to cut off relationships with that organization, and it's because they support Israel. This morning on Fox and Friends, the CEO of the organization, the Anti-Defamation League, his name is Jonathan Greenblatt, and he had this to say about that decision from the teachers union. Cut number 9.
And the reality is, it's an organization that clearly has been overtaken by activists. These individuals are there to teach our children in the classroom, the basics of reading and writing and arithmetic, not radicalism. But that's exactly what's happened. We've seen an explosion of anti-Semitism in this country, Charlie, right? Anti-Jewish acts of harassment, vandalism, and violence have skyrocketed. Last year was the worst year we've ever tracked at ADL. And yet somehow these teachers think the answer is to isolate Jewish students, to intimidate other Jewish educators, and to target the oldest organization in the country fighting anti-Semitism.
Okay, this is what he's talking about again is the National Education Association and their annual convention. This is the largest teachers union, right?
Correct.
In the country. And these people, the NEA has always been on the left side of the Democrat Party. I mean, there are a lot of AOCs over there, so to speak.
Yeah.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's become a metaphor, hadn't she?
Yes.
The three letters AOC. I mean, the NEA. So the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, is an organization like the NAACP. If you're familiar with the NAACP, which has been around for a long time, and they represent black folks when injustices, as they perceive them at least, have been done, they speak out, right? The NAACP. You don't hear from them much anymore. But anyway, the ADL is like the NAACP, but for Jewish people.
Yes,
okay? Right. And so they've been considered on the left too. So you have a division among people on the left here, and this is a real problem for the Democrat Party, because traditionally Jewish people, although they are, 1, 2, 3% of the American population, something like that, but they've always been real loyal to Democrats. Yeah. Democratic Party. But now you have a situation where there's a divide in that party, and it's a serious one, as that fellow right there was just talking about, because I don't know where Jewish people go with their vote and support politically if they have to abandon the Democrat Party, because they've never really identified with the Republicans, so to speak. So this and some people say this is the reason that the governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro, what's his first name? Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, had Kamala Harris, the vice president, who was the Democrat nominee, selected Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, she would have had a better chance of beating Trump in the general election. Whether she would have or not, who knows, but it would have
probably swung Pennsylvania.
Given him Pennsylvania, which was a big state in a close election, right?
Yeah.
So, but the theory is that she didn't choose him because he's a Jew. Now, right. She would never say that out loud.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the intensity of the war in the Democrat Party and among people on the left is getting heated up. It's a internal war, because the people like the NEA, they're going to say the Jews in Israel are committing genocide against the people in Gaza. And they're going to say, you, other Jews in America, need to condemn that. And if you don't, you're in support of genocide. And we can't have any, quote, fellowship with you. You see what I'm saying here?
Right.
So that's a lot of the energy against Israel is turning into anti-Semitism in the U.S. By people on the far left, and they're at war not with us, not with people on the right necessarily. They're at war with people within their own movement, traditionally. That's a long-winded answer.
No, listen, and we're going to see something interesting here, because I'm looking at an Axios article on this vote at the National Education Association, because this is a divide between in the Democratic Party, as you're talking about, Tim, between the establishment Democrats and this new enraged radical leftist wing of the party. Okay, this Axios article says that because this vote by NEA delegates, again, this is at their National Education Association at their National Assembly in Portland, Oregon. This article says because it was determined to be a sanction item, it is automatically referred to the NEA Executive Committee. This is according to an NEA spokesperson. So this spokesperson told Axios, therefore, the official action on the proposal is adopted but referred to committee. So this is going to be fascinating because I'm guessing that committee is going to be like the establishment in the Democratic Party trying to calm down their foot soldiers, okay? This is going to be interesting. If this committee gives thumbs up to this vote, it's, to me, going to be an indication that the Democratic Party establishment may eventually crumble and turn officially against Israel and become a pro-Palestinian party. If I was a Jewish person of any political stripe in this country, this vote by the National Education Association, their delegates, this would make chills run up and down my spine, because I would be thinking, this happened in Germany before the Nazis took over and started shoving us into camps. How is this happening in the United States of America? But it shows that this country has split wide open between a radical political worldview and the traditionalists.
Yeah. And I do think it's related directly to what's going on. They're going to say the Jews in Israel are persecuting the Arabs, Muslims in Gaza. And because of that, you, Jews in America, need to condemn Israel.
Yeah.
Or else you're for genocide.
Right.
What they call genocide.
Yeah.
So, but what's also interesting here is the National Education Association, I don't know how many members they have, but they still wield a lot of influence in terms of what's taught in schools.
Oh, absolutely.
And the ADL supplies information to schools about the Holocaust.
And about anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Teaching kids about anti-Semitism. This is just the latest front in what I see as an education system that is turned on the Jewish people and on Israel.
Yeah.
We saw this being manifested after October 7th, 2023.
Yeah.
Within 2 days, there were anti-Israel protests, Columbia, Harvard, Yale.
Clearly organized and paid for.
Yes. But deep-seated anti-Semitism within our education system.
Yes. Well, because a lot of these college students had already been in classrooms where they were taught to hate Israel and to reckon Israel with the white oppression of people of color, even though Jews and Arabs are the same skin color.
Yes.
Okay, but they're part of the oppressive from a cultural Marxist worldview. They're part of the problem.
Yeah. And let me just say this. Maybe I'm alone here. White's a color. White's a color. Is it a color or not?
I'm just going to be honest. I've never seen an actual white person.
What color are you?
I'm kind of tan.
Look, I've been out in the sun more than you have.
Yeah, you're kind of
all that mowing.
I think we should insist that we at least be called pink people.
Okay, I'll go with that.
or peachy.
Right. The peach. We're peach.
We're peach.
That's what I said. Peachy.
I'm peachy keen.
We're peach. We're peachy.
Okay.
I've never actually seen a black person.
Right.
Not the color black.
Like your shirt.
We're all shades.
That's a good song right there.
It is.
We're all shades.
We're all shades.
We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on American Family Radio.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Wilson Thomas Turner was sitting at the bar. The date, September the 12th, 1964. The place was Bradenton, Florida. One more little drink won't hurt anything, he could have thought. Turner took one more little drink. Maybe it was one for the road. Then he ordered another bottle to take home. It's always good to have a bottle around the house, isn't it? Turner got up from his seat, turned, and walked through the door. He got into his automobile to drive home. He had done it before. Like most folks, he thought a little toddy wouldn't affect his driving. Some folks, you know, do their best driving with a shot or two under their belts. He opened the door and sat down behind the steering wheel. Then he headed down the road toward home. Turner had had a hard day. He was looking forward to seeing his son, Randall. Randall was in the 5th grade now. He'd grown up so fast. Turner was proud of his son. He always liked to spend some time with him. The automobile roared down the street. The speedometer went higher and higher. Turner didn't notice the speedometer. Maybe like a lot of other folks who drive after a shot or two, he was an expert driver. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, came a kid riding a bicycle. Turner turned, applied the brakes. He waited for a split second. Then he heard a loud thump. He looked back. The kid was on the pavement. He sped away. Witnesses at the scene identified the car. Officers found it later at the home of Turner. The blood was still on it. They found Turner in the attic, a bottle in his hand. It was the bottle that was good to have around the house. Officers questioned him for more than an hour. Then the news came. The boy was dead. He just went to pieces when he was told that the boy was dead, said Sheriff Ken Gross. Turner was taken to jail. He was charged with manslaughter and leaving the scene of a fatal accident. His attorney, Jerry Hussey, carried him a Bible. He sat in the jail day after day reading the Bible. He's sworn up and down to his wife and to me that he'll never touch another drop of liquor, said Mr. Hussey. Turner was allowed to leave the jail long enough to attend the funeral service for the boy. It was one of the hardest funerals Turner ever had to face. The minister tried to bring comfort in such a trying hour. They carried the casket to the grave and lowered it into the earth. The life that Turner had taken so foolishly, nothing anyone could do would ever bring the boy back. A little drink never hurt anyone, did it? Well, Turner couldn't say that now, because it had hurt. So awfully hard it hurt. If there was only another chance. But it's too late now. Too late. The story is true. It was carried by the news service. Oh, there's one other item in the story. The boy that Turner killed was Randall Turner, his 12-year-old son.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
When you see trash in the media, submit it to 1millionmoms.com. Over the years, 1 million moms and our partners have improved advertising choices of programmers and content seen on TV. Just like you, 1 million moms want to protect little eyes and ears from the trash that could hurt them. So when you see trash in the media, visit 1millionmoms.com. Scroll down and look for the Submit Trash button.
Take it away!
1millionmoms.com.
Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. Psalm 139, 23 through 24.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred. And in just a few moments, we're going to Wesley. Ed, Fred, and Tim will be quiet, and Wesley will be given 15 minutes to talk about the Jeffrey Epstein story. And we'll just turn Wesley loose on that one.
Yeah.
And we'll get Tony Vitagliano, Ed's son, in here and let him join up
Well,
with
then
Wesley.
then the rest of y'all could just
They
take
ain't
the
no
rest
need
of the
us
show
being
off.
in here.
Take the show off.
Yeah. We will talk about that. It is a serious story involving the New York Playboy. I don't know what you was. He was a pedophile.
Yeah.
Right. Talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty big story, and we will talk about it in just a few minutes here on today's issues. But first of all, we have some very good news to report, and joining us to talk about it is Abraham Hamilton III. Abe is general counsel for us here at AFA and heard each afternoon on the Hamilton Corner from 5 to 6 o'clock Central Time right here on American Family Radio. Good morning, Abe.
Good morning.
Oh, tell us the good news.
Yeah, so there is a case that's pending in the Eastern District of Texas in the Tyler Division styled National Religious Broadcasters versus Billy Long in his official capacity as the commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service. That case takes aim at the Johnson Amendment, specifically saying that it is an unconstitutional incursion upon the free exercise and free speech rights of churches if the IRS continues to threaten revocation of tax exempt status for churches that would endorse candidates publicly. The interesting turn of events is that the case now has what's called a joint motion for entry of consent judgment, which means that both parties that were opposing one another have agreed to ask the court to grant its consent to the parties' agreement that churches do not run afoul of the law and should not risk their tax exempt status if they endorse candidates publicly. So that would mean that pastors and churches would be able to endorse candidates for a political office, including the presidency, publicly within their congregations without fear of retribution from the IRS. And again, that would be a consent agreement between the NRB and the rest of the plaintiffs and the IRS. And Billy Long in his official capacity as IRS commissioner. That is a huge, huge, huge deal because for so long, pastors have been afraid in many instances or unwilling or reluctant in other instances to speak publicly about candidates for office out of fear of losing their tax exempt
And that's
status.
your Al Sharpton.
Or Al Sharpton,
Reverend Al Sharpton.
the Reverend Al Sharpton,
Yeah.
Jamal Bryant, Raphael Warnock.
Right.
I mean, you can go down
Democrats
the whole list.
have been doing this forever.
Yes.
I'm talking about speaking at churches and endorsing candidates, and I don't have a problem with them speaking. It's America, but it's only the conservative churches that were the ones who were thought to be in violation of the IRS laws.
Yes, and I should add that the consent order has not been signed yet by the court, but it's been proposed by both parties. So that's the IRS admitting in a formal court filing that churches do not violate the law if pastors and their congregations endorse candidates within the regular orders of worship as they speak to their congregants and their parishioners in their local churches.
So does this change the law that's currently on the books, or does this just clarify?
It doesn't change anything about the law that's on the books. I've long said and really advised people that churches did not have to formally register for 501c3 protection because that was a ruse promulgated by Lyndon B. Johnson to get churches to be silent on political issues. So it doesn't change the law, but it clarifies formally what the law is, and that is that pastors and churches do not violate the law and do not jeopardize their tax exempt status by advising their congregants on all manners of life, doctrine, and public engagement, including the moral and religious implications of electoral politics.
You know what? I've been in obviously conservative churches for a long time, and from time to time politics does come up and government and what the Christian's responsibility is, but And this is not necessarily because of fear or repercussions from the IRS, but I think most churches and pastors, they don't want to get involved in endorsing particular candidates. That's just not the role of the church. But they do, that is, churches and pastors, I think, have an obligation when it is election time for a governor or a president or to say, okay, here are the party platforms. Now here's the things that the candidates themselves say they believe and maybe take, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's appropriate to bring up, but rarely. I've never heard somebody say, "Hey, Pastor so and so says, hey, I'm endorsing John Doe over here for governor."
I would just say I was in the pastorate for many years. If I was a pastor and this Internal Revenue Service, this IRS,
you've never heard of it?
Well, no,
you're like you've never heard of it.
If this change had happened while I was pastoring,
right.
This is my personal opinion, according to my conscience, I would still not endorse individual candidates. I like what you said. I have and always did talk about issues. I might lay out the party platform.
Right, something like that.
Something like that.
Say the differences.
Here's the reason why I would not personally, and people, I'm sure there are pastors who disagree with me, but that's fine.
I may disagree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that, to me, the pulpit is meant to endorse Jesus.
I wouldn't.
And
hold on, Wesley.
and if I used that pulpit to endorse another human being, and that person turned and fell away from the faith, or became adulterous or whatever, then I have, in my opinion, I have squandered the influence of the pulpit. So, all right. So
Wesley,
we already
ahead.
have somebody here who disagrees with me. So,
well, let's not. We could do that, but let's just focus on the point that this is a win because it gives the people.
Amen.
It gives people freedom
right.
to endorse, and it's more than just political candidates. It's also school boards, directors. It's
right.
There's more. It's a bigger picture than that one particular instance, which, by the way, in that one particular instance, I may agree with you more than I disagree with you because from the pulpit I agree, but then personally, what you have to decide if a person physically leaves the pulpit, goes home, and gets on his social media account.
No, absolutely.
That kind of thing, yeah.
Right.
But I do agree. I'm tracking with you a little bit. But go ahead, Fred.
No, I just had a question for Abe, clarification. Abe, you said this applies to pastors, to churches, but does it apply to all 501c3 nonprofits?
No, it does not. That was an express limitation in the order, that it's limited to churches in their regular worship services and their regular orders of communication to their own congregants, not to the more broad context of nonprofit organizations that are 501c3 organizations.
Is the Johnson Amendment what created the 501c3 status? So, in other words, if it was repealed at some point, would there be no more 501c3 status?
Ultimately, it could if it was ultimately repealed, but this is not a repealing of the Johnson Amendment. It is expressing what I would argue is a more constitutional understanding of it as it applies to churches.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're talking about the good news yesterday. You said that this was a announcement by the IRS? This wasn't a court?
So the IRS filed in open court a joint motion along with NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters, and the other plaintiffs, their consent to this understanding of the Johnson Amendment.
Okay. But they could change their minds?
No. Once this is
it's like
granted,
a settlement, is that not? Am I right?
Yeah, basically it's a settlement in the case.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. You're welcome. My legal.
Yes.
So
you came through for us.
Well, I just like the fact that a guy named Billy Long is now in charge of the Internal Revenue Service, because I've been waiting a long time
for a Billy Long.
Someone named Billy?
Well, for a Billy. I played against him in church league softball, and I knew he was going places. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because he could evermore hit the ball. I said, one day, my friend Billy Long, listen to me. One day you're going to be the leader of a 3-letter agency.
All right. Well, I got an important question
and
for
here
you.
he is.
You said he could, sure enough, hit the ball.
Yes, he could.
Did he actually go to your church, or did you draft him?
He did go to my church during softball season. And we all know how that works.
Oh, yes,
right?
that's why I was asking.
About March, we have some
church league free agency.
Yeah.
We got the NIL.
You got the NIL.
Yeah.
Wesley beat me to the punch. You got the NIL going on
from your tides.
From
free agency.
I always like the guy who, when the industrial league's going on, he's playing for Budweiser.
Yes.
And then when church league starts, he switches over to First Baptist. Baptist.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No, the best one, and I won't bore you with all the details, but I was playing a church league basketball. It was a group of guys in the same boat we're talking about here, and they didn't have matching shirts. Okay, they didn't even have matching jerseys. But if you go, so to figure out who you're playing, you go to the schedule.
Yeah,
and you look, and it was third non-denominational.
That was the name of the church?
Yes.
They were just wanting to pick up on church guys.
For sure, but that's where
they weren't even a real church.
No,
they probably didn't even comply with IRS.
No, it doesn't.
So anyway,
third non-denominational.
Okay, well, listen, Abe, that's some very good news, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. Anything else you wanted to ask him about, Fred?
Yeah, there are a couple of really nice guys by the name of John Brennan and James Comey are now the subject of a federal investigation.
Hiss.
They're not playing on my church league team. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of winning going on. This is one of the ones I was referring to.
Now, Mr. Brennan used to be the former CIA director, and James Comey used to direct the FBI. There are allegations that maybe they were into dirty tricks against Donald Trump during his first administration.
No.
Let's talk about Russiagate. What do you think, Abe?
Let's relive that.
I think water is wet. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's amazing because you have evidence now that the CIA has come out and said that John Brennan was in particular the major player from the intelligence community working behind the scenes to include the Steele dossier into what eventually became the Russia hoax, the Russiagate investigation, even though John Brennan testified before Congress in 2023 that he opposed the Steele dossier's utilization in Russiagate, that at a minimum indicates that he potentially could have perjured himself under oath, if not worse. So he has been formally referred to the Department of Justice for criminal investigation. And also, my non-frame it, James Comey the Clown, has also been referred to Department of Justice criminal investigation. However, the DOJ has not stated publicly the basis of the criminal inquiry, but they just have confirmed that he is being investigated for potential criminal prosecution.
Do you think the Brennan investigation has legs? I mean, you think this is a real thing where he could, if found guilty, could go to prison?
I do, because at a minimum, he has publicly perjured himself if the evidence is substantiated, because the CIA has come forward, whistleblowers in the CIA have come forward providing evidence that directly contradicts what he testified to publicly in 2023 before the House committee. So at a minimum, it could be perjury, if not more. So
John Brennan, then the CIA director, right?
Right.
Yes.
For Obama, right?
That's right.
Or for Biden? Which one?
Obama. He was Obama's CIA
director. But he's the one. Was he in the Biden administration too, though?
I believe he was. I don't know what the formal capacity was. I'd have to look that up. But
okay.
I know
Well,
sure he was
anyway,
Obama's CIA director.
He was the John Brennan. He was the one. He was one of the ones who instigated the. Remember the all these specialists and experts involved.
The letter of the 51 intelligence.
Saying that the Hunter Biden story was fake and was Russia disinformation. Remember that?
Yes, he was very much that as well.
Yes, he was very much. He was very hyper partisan, and talking about Brennan and his John Brennan. But anyway, we'll see what happens here, Fred.
I just had a quick question, Abe. Is it possible that if the investigation proceeds, that we could see a friend of these two gentlemen, Hillary Clinton, hauled in by subpoena and put under oath, because many people think her hands are as dirty as the other two?
And you can count me in that many other people category. This is where you have possibility versus likelihood. So it is possible, but concerning the likelihood, I can't really say how likely it is, depending on what evidence is uncovered in the formal investigation of the two who have already been announced. So it is very possible. But the likelihood I just can't speak to at this juncture.
On that Steele dossier, John Brennan, then the CIA director, was told was told by multiple, at least two of his top aides, that this was not substantiated.
You're absolutely right.
And,
yeah, that's
and,
absolutely right. That's
and
a part of
unprovable and shouldn't be entered into any kind of official record. And he said, I don't care. I'm telling you, he didn't say I don't care, but his action said, I don't care. I'm going to enter it anyway. That's that's what happened there, right?
Yes, that is a part of the query. And then he comes around and lies about it and said that he opposed it and was against its utilization. You're right. There are high-level intelligence officials who lobbied him specifically to say you should not include that in any form or anything because it doesn't bear the markers of anything having credibility.
All right, you got 5 more minutes, Abe?
Yes.
All right. Well, you're going to wish you didn't. Because I'm about
No, I don't have 5 minutes.
All right. You said it. Now, if you got it, if your dog starts barking or whatever, somebody at the door, you let me know.
I think I know what's coming, Abe.
Jeffrey Epstein. What do you think about that? There you go. And handle that one. Pam Bondi.
Well. Go
ahead. Talk about that.
I did say this on the Hamilton Corner. I said one of the biggest issues is both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, before they were FBI members of the FBI, they stated their concern about Jeffrey Epstein, that he didn't kill himself, things of that nature. They've now reversed course. Pam Bondi, upon taking office, literally came out and said, I have the Epstein client list on my desk. She said that publicly on television. I played the clip on my show. And then for the DOJ now to have a memo saying that the Epstein client list doesn't exist,
all right,
it provokes a question. Was she lying then? Or is she lying now?
Okay,
what happened?
Sorry to interrupt, but President Trump commented on this yesterday in the presence of Pam Bondi, and
she commented too.
Here's what they had to say about it.
That's cut number 6.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
In February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
Okay. This is called a spin room right there.
You know I'm from New Orleans, and I've seen crawfish a few times in my life.
You know what? I hate this because I like all these people. I think we're all supportive of the job they're doing otherwise, talking about, for the most part, President Trump and Pam Bondi as AG and Kash Patel as FBI director. But it just sounds like to me they're this is what a lot of people are thinking. I'll just say that. I'll do like President Trump and say, people are saying.
Yes.
I'll just put it that way.
Some are saying, yeah.
Some are saying that there's a cover-up here, and now the Trump administration is part of it. And you said this morning at one of our meetings, Ed, that there may be – now, you're just speculating.
Yes.
I'll just say this. But everybody's speculating because it sounds like Pam Bondi had information that now they don't want to share, they being President Trump and his administration, maybe for a good reason. I don't know. President Trump says, why are we even talking about this anymore? And he should know better. He knows why people are still talking about this.
Yes.
Because this, among MAGA supporters, this is like the number one story.
Yes.
So go ahead and talk about it.
Well, listen, if you know anything about – I'm just going to be as brief as I can. And I'm not accusing anybody, and I'm not making – I am saying that if you've done any study at all, the CIA is a dirty business, what they do. It's a dirty business.
You don't want to know how the sausage is made.
You don't want to know how the sausage is made. The United States of America has done a lot of underhanded stuff, okay? So there are a lot of Americans who understand that. They understand that you got to do some of that because the other side's doing it too, okay? So I'm looking at someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who, as far as I've read, was not well known as an investor. He was not a guy who was known for being a billionaire because of all the money he's made with smart investments. He got his money to live his lifestyle somewhere. And so the speculation on the street,
right?
And
people are saying,
I'm all about
people
the
are
street.
saying,
the speculation is that the CIA and maybe even the Mossad, that's the intelligence agency of Israel, paid and kept Epstein afloat and paid for his lifestyle so that people could come, well-known people could come to his island and traffic in young women, and then the CIA has them. They have video, they have proof, and then if you need to apply a twisting of the arm to get something done, you have evidence to do that.
It's like blackmail.
It's like blackmail.
It sounds like a movie.
It does sound like a movie.
Firm.
And now Christians, I also said this morning, Christians need to tell the truth. We need to speak the truth about what we know is true. I don't know that that's a fact, but I do know that the CIA does stuff like that. And all this stuff about disappearing files. Pam Bondi was saying she has the Epstein client list on her desk. I don't care what else. Like Abe said, that's crawfishing. You say that then, and now you're saying, well, I wasn't really talking about the client list. Everybody's suspicious about Epstein. Did he kill himself? There's a minute missing on the videotape. I'm telling you, this stinks to high heaven, and this is not a good look for President Trump to act like asking the questions that everyone is thinking is somehow disrespectful to what's going on in Texas. I got news for the president and everybody else who's saying that. The American people can think about two things at the same time.
All right, now help remind me of the details here, but this is the second time, if I remember correctly, that they've let us down on this issue, because they also said they were going to release a packet, didn't they? And then they released it, and it was pretty much nothing in there on this issue.
They had a whole event at the White House.
That's what it was. Yep.
And a bunch of influencers and podcasters and conservative commentators went to Washington for the event to receive the binders that were distributed.
The binders, that's
only
what it was.
for them to get to where they could actually read what was in it, and nothing was in it.
And
it was stuff that everyone already knew.
It was stuff that everybody knew, I should say. It was
Yeah.
nothing additional than things that were already in the public discourse.
Nobody's going to stop talking about this.
And it wasn't, and that was considering the fact the big of a deal that they made it. They made a whole afternoon out of it.
Yeah.
Look, people are horrified about what went on down at that island. And if you're Joe Blow in Philadelphia and you get caught trafficking young girls, you go into prison for the rest of your life. And the thought that just because there are big shots, just because there's some big shot in Parliament or in the royal family, or with all these accusations going around, just because you're a big shot, you get away with it, and the American government is going to cover up for you. That's what people are thinking, and that makes people furious.
Well,
that's going on.
And I still don't think he killed himself. I'm sorry. I still think he killed himself.
You do or don't?
You think Epstein committed suicide?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. The other way around.
Yeah,
Somebody helped him commit suicide.
Yeah. Right. Listen, Abe, I guess we give you the last word here. People are not going to stop talking about this just because President Trump said, hey, move on to something else. This
the way he said it made it worse.
Absolutely. This sticks in the craw of average Americans who don't like this kind of perversion and corruption and think the government might be covering it up.
I think something could describe a MAGA.
This whole thing.
Well, a lot of people voted for President Trump to end the two-tier justice system.
Yes.
This goes in the opposite direction of
y'all. I don't want to hear anymore because y'all are causing me to lose my faith in my government and in humanity in general, and I don't need that today.
Not today.
All right, how about tomorrow?
Because it'll be around. Today's hump day. Can you wait till Monday to dump some?
I could. Sure. Just Mondays are pretty terrible around here.
I tell you what, somebody's going to make a movie that on this. Well, they might be.
Tim, you were right. I want my 5 minutes back.
Okay. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
How do you choose to stay informed? Sure, you can find all kinds of sources for information and commentary, but when you want them from a Christian perspective, turn to The Stand. Whether you choose to read the online blog or get the print version delivered to your mailbox, you can rest assured you'll receive factual news and biblically sound commentary. Find out more today at afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Residents in Texas are recovering following the deadly floods from this past week. Brooke Taylor reporting from Kerrville.
The death toll now is at 111 people. That includes 30 children just here in Kerr County. Those numbers expected to dramatically rise. Most of the children who tragically passed away were campers at Camp Mystic, some as young as 8 years old, fast asleep in their cabins when this happened. The deaths, though, they extend beyond the camp as the raging river pulled people from their homes and trailers across 6 different counties, dragging them miles past these floating trees and debris. That Governor Greg Abbott toured this devastation on Tuesday.
New details emerging about the suspects charged with an ambush at an ICE facility in Texas last week. William Lajeunesse reports.
Friday night near Dallas, this group lures 2 unarmed ICE agents into a parking lot by firing fireworks at their door and spray painting graffiti on their personal cars in the parking lot, mark number 1. Now, about the same time, a police officer responds to a 911 call. 2 men fire 20 to 30 rounds from a tree line nearby, hitting the officer and forcing the agents to take cover. Moments later, deputies arrive. So court records reveal extensive planning and a lot of anti-government literature. This is one of several targeted attacks on agents.
The Justice Department is suing the state of California over Title IX violations. The lawsuit was filed against California Department of Education and the California Interscholastic Federation. It cites Governor Gavin Newsom's own words, calling biological males competing in women's sports, quote, deeply unfair. Education Secretary Linda McMahon says this is something that President Trump campaigned on.
It is just totally unfair to have men competing against women in sports, and also to share their intimate locker facilities, etc. And women fought hard for these rights, and it is the law, and the president means business with it.
A provision of the big, beautiful law that President Trump signed last week has been blocked, at least for now. Steve Jordahl reports Planned Parenthood found a federal judge to restore its taxpayer funding.
The new law put a 1-year moratorium on Medicaid funds paying for abortions. Planned Parenthood ran to a judge in Boston who put a 14-day temporary restraining order on that provision. But American Family Association attorney Steve Crampton says there are some problems with the ruling.
The judge's order, as best I can tell, does not comply with some of the basic requirements of the federal rules with regard to such emergency actions.
Specifically, Crampton says, stating why the injunction was ordered and its specific terms. He says the order was also sprung on the government.
This temporary restraining order, TRO, was issued without notice to the government. So they didn't even have an opportunity to respond.
He says the court order is not subject to the recent Supreme Court ruling banning universal mandates from lower court judges because of the type of injunction the judge, an Obama appointee, applied.
A temporary restraining order like this is not reviewable on appeal, but for very extreme circumstances. So, in effect, this is a bulletproof order for at least a very short time.
But he says the Trump administration's getting good at parrying these political attacks from the courts for all the practice it's been getting.
I would characterize this as another classic lawfare undertaking.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
And finally, the Trump administration will now let people use rent payments to help them qualify for a mortgage.
FICO scores are used in mortgage underwriting traditionally, but now the Federal Housing Finance Agency says Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac can also use what's called a Vantage score that incorporates a borrower's rent payment history to determine if they qualify for a mortgage. Well-needed relief for millions of Americans struggling to buy a home, often for the first time. Historically, about 2 million people each year get the keys to their very first home. You remember that day. You got your keys. But last year, that number sunk to an all-time low, 1.1 million.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hello, my name is Andy Miller, and I'm the president of Wesley Biblical Seminary based in Ridgeland, Mississippi. We are developing trusted leaders for faithful churches, and we do that based in the authority of Scripture and in the reality that Christians can be transformed. We do that also through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. We'd love for you to learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary at wbs.edu, where we're developing trusted leaders for faithful churches.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association.
Okay, raise your hand out there if you would had thoughts of if you could ever get to a spammer or a scammer that you would do bodily harm to that person.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Baby, you know what I'm saying?
The ungodly thoughts I've had.
Well, good morning, Steve Jordahl.
Good morning, everybody.
Steve Paisley Jordahl,
Yep.
wearing his flamingo shirt.
Yep.
His rainbow flamingos.
That's a pretty cool shirt, right
I like
there.
it. I like
Thank
that
you.
shirt.
Okay, so, Steve,
Yes.
my wife Allison, she got out this shirt that I'm wearing now.
Yeah.
This morning, she bought it at
Nice
Sports Academy. I give them a free ad.
Yep.
Academy Sports.
I didn't pick out this shirt,
That's right.
although I like it. She
Not a
picked
very
it out
good ad.
for me. She said, I picked this out specifically so you could one-up Steve.
Did she? You did
Yeah.
too. That's
And
nice.
so
it looks like Miami Vice. The
that's what you said. I look like Don Johnson.
There you go.
Well,
I got the
didn't say
4-day.
that, Tim,
I got
but-
the. Wait, that's right. You didn't. I do have the 4-day beard going on.
Yes.
though, like Don Johnson.
Yes.
in
He was
Miami
known
Vice.
for that.
So, and Steve's got the pink
That's
well,
right.
the flamingos, they're multicolored.
kinda-
Steve's a multicultural kind
That's
of
it.
guy.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Flamingos on LSD.
Which we don't encourage.
We don't.
No, we don't.
Because you take LSD, you start seeing flamingos.
That's right. Just like those.
You know what I'm
My
saying?
understanding is flamingos are actually pretty mean birds.
Are they really?
Yeah, like you get too close to them, they'll bite you.
These haven't done me any harm.
That
So.
describes every animal on the planet, though.
That's true. That's true. What a nice little squirrel. My finger.
I tell you what, we're experiencing here in our area, the Northeast Mississippi area, and this is probably true of a lot of the South right now. At least is the mosquitoes.
Yes.
Because we got so much rain.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Huh?
Mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes. Anyway, they're swarmers now.
Yeah.
They attack you.
They own the outside.
You're swatting one,
If you,
and then two more are getting you from the backside.
his brothers and cousins come looking for you.
Yes.
Now, Ed, you know a lot about flamingos. Tell us a little bit about mosquitoes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Mosquitoes are.
They're the bane
Hey,
of
they
human
think-
existence
think you
in
got
a lot of
mosquitoes.
places.
I tell you, I know Texas is. They say everything's bigger in Texas, but I'd put our mosquitoes here in Mississippi. I'd put our
Against
mosquitoes up against anybody.
Yeah, anybody's mosquitoes.
Anybody's mosquitoes. So, anyway, do you use the when you're outside? Do you use the spray? Just curious.
No.
You
No,
don't? Why?
I-
Because you're a real man.
No. I stay. I'll sit on the porch until the mosquitoes come out, and then I go, "Yes, sir. I'm going inside."
Yeah, no, I don't
I don't like
tend to use-
sprays.
I don't tend to get bit a lot. I'm sure that they get me.
They know you're from California.
They know I'm from California. So, hey, I'm giving away a dog this morning.
That was
Seriously?
That was an abrupt.
It was. Well,
that
I
was
got to
an
tell you,
abrupt change of topic.
What does this have to do with Jeffrey Epstein? I want to know.
it has to do with mosquitoes and now ticks.
Oh.
Oh yeah, Allison found a tick
Oh,
on
my
her
gosh.
yesterday. So
Yeah,
ticks are out too.
It was a bad morning.
I'm telling you, so it's like the African jungle here right now.
It really is.
Between ticks and mosquitoes and
It's almost like the world is fallen.
Yeah, it's like a. I don't know. If
Will
you
the
have to,
ticks
if you
lay
have
down
to
with the
choose
mosquitoes in
between
heaven?
if you have to choose between a mosquito and a rhino, I guess you still stay with the mosquito.
Still
though.
stay with the mosquito, although malaria kills more people around the world
Than rhinos.
than almost anything else.
Yeah.
That's what I needed to hear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have malaria.
Malaria. Hey, and on a serious note, my dad did get encephalitis from
Yes.
a mosquito. I mean,
It's bad business.
Yes, we used to have to take malaria shots every 6 months when I lived in Africa.
Yeah.
Oh, for that. Yeah, it's a serious thing. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and now Steve Paisley Jordan joins us. Steve, what's your first story?
I'd like to talk about the attack on the immigration and customs enforcement officials that we're seeing around this country. We had a level up in this, as they say in the gaming world. The bad guys have started organizing. A couple days ago, we saw a lone gunman try to take out some ICE officials on the border of Texas at a border crossing. He didn't. He was stopped. They shot him and killed him. The next day, 10 Antifa types. I don't know. They haven't identified what gang they're from, but they look like the Antifa type. Organized and have been charged with attempted murder after they, in an organized fashion, went after ICE agents down in Texas. And it is, like I say, it's like a leveling up. They are now organizing in RICO style, gang style, and they are starting to put together a organized resistance to the Trump administration, a violent organized resistance to the Trump administration. And it's interesting, Caroline Leavitt was talking about this from the White House podium the other day, talking about the dangers that our ICE agents are getting, cut 3.
The American public witnessed an open border, illegal alien invasion for 4 years, and they said enough is enough. The vast majority of this country supports deporting illegal criminals from our communities. This administration is all hands on deck in doing that to remove public safety threats from our communities, to protect our nation, our homeland, and our citizens. And they face now a 700% increase in violence from radical left lunatics, and we're not going to tolerate that.
And what are we hearing from Democrats? Crickets.
Yeah.
Or we're hearing them ratchet up the threats. Cut 1.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons.
This is Gestapo-like behavior.
Folks getting snatched off the street by secret police who are wearing masks.
And you compare them to those nondescript thugs who grabbed that student, that graduated student. It does look like a Gestapo operation.
Okay, can I say something?
Sure. It's your show.
Well, I don't know what a Gestapo. They're talking about the SS working for Hitler's Nazi Germany, right? Isn't that the Gestapo reference?
The Gestapo was the secret police.
Secret police,
yeah.
Which did sweep people off from their homes.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were
disappear them.
They're basically doing the bidding of the Nazis and terrorizing their communities. So anybody they thought was a spy or anybody thought was disloyal to the Führer would be. Right. The SS or the Gestapo would visit their home. Have I got this right? Basically, secret police?
Yeah.
Okay. What's going on in our country now with the Homeland Security guys?
ICE. Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Okay. Number one, tell me when physical police work ever looks easy on the eyes.
Right,
so to speak. Okay, it's always when you see a video or of a cop. I'm talking about when
they're enforcing the law,
and they're enforcing the law, and they have to get aggressive with somebody. There's a part of you that always watches the video, going, "Is that really necessary? Can't they just ask them nicely to
Right.
I know that's naive and that's stupid, but that's a thought we all have." And I mean, nice. I mean, you go, couldn't this have been avoided if you'd if a cop had done this or done that? Now, let me just say this first. Secondly, most of the time, videos are picked up where the people who want you to believe one way or another have taken the video and sliced and diced it. Okay, it's kind of like you go to the grocery store. And you're there to pick up a few items, and you walk around the bread. You start going down the bread aisle, and there's this mother just wearing out a 3-year-old with her hand on his rump or something like that. Or you know what I'm saying? and you go, oh, that's awful. That child doesn't deserve that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That sweet little child. Can't you just talk to him and put him in timeout in the basket or something like that? Okay, what they don't show you is the 20 minutes that kid's been pitching a fit,
right,
and talking,
ignoring mama,
ignoring or talking back to, or being a smart aleck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The frustration level. So you make a judgment based on your
where the video starts.
Where the video starts, and a lot of these people on the political left here who are wanting to exploit this, they're taking videos of ICE arresting people, and no, it doesn't look good, okay? But they don't tell you that the people they're arresting, what their rap sheet is,
right,
or why they're wanted. In Los Angeles, remember when that started, all that stuff about 6 weeks ago in Los Angeles? Well, they had a search warrant they were going to execute.
Right.
They had a search warrant from a judge because they were going to pick up a bad dude. And I think the bad dude ran from them or something, and then people started defending the bad dude because they didn't want ICE there,
right?
Quote, terrorizing their community.
Stop ICE.
Did you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, also the reason that, it does look like the Gestapo when you watch the videos, but they don't tell you that these ICE officers are being doxxed, and they're having to wear a mask. They don't want to wear a mask, but they have to wear a mask to cover up their identity because they're being doxxed, and they and their families' lives are being threatened. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's the reason. And so the left here, the Democrats are saying, "Oh, this is Gestapo, and they need to take off the mask and quit terrorizing people." So go ahead.
and everybody knows that that's why they're wearing the masks. Our Democrat lawmakers in Congress have introduced a measure which will go nowhere because Republicans control the legislature, but to require them to take off their masks to put their families at risk. Our Democrat lawmakers in Washington want them to take off their masks and want to put their families at risk. Yes. There's a lawsuit that the ACLU has filed against ICE, and Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, has joined in this lawsuit. There's a U.S. attorney for Central California. His name is Bill Isaili, and he has something to say about that. Cut 2.
Yeah, let me be very clear what's going on here. You have the politicians in California who are being openly hostile to the federal government. We are doing our job. We are enforcing federal immigration laws as written by Congress. If Karen Bass didn't like the law, she should have changed it when she was in Congress. But instead, what she's doing is she's signaling to the public that it's okay to stand up to federal agents, to obstruct them, to impede them, and yes, in some cases, to attack them. So we are not going to be dissuaded. This is why the military is here. It's so critical that we have the military protecting our agents. And to Ms. Bass, we will not be intimidated, and we will not be deterred from accomplishing our mission.
This problem's solved if the ICE agents just say that they feel as if they have a little bit of COVID. And then the problem solved.
That's a good point.
They have to wear a mask.
We don't want to spread COVID. It's going around in our ranks. Therefore,
now, we know
have to
the
wear a mask.
Republicans and most conservatives will be like, yeah, I get it. But then for just from an argument standpoint, the left is going to have a hard time with that one.
Yeah,
because they were so.
We're just trying to follow the science.
Just follow the science.
You were making a point earlier this morning, though, in the meeting about masks when the left didn't care whether people wore masks.
Yeah, I don't know if I was making that point, but the point that was made was that when Antifa wears masks in the middle of their committing of crimes and their violence, none of the Democrats call for them to be demasked. Don't take those things off, but they don't. And I can't emphasize enough, the Democrat Party, we kind of say, oh, they're appealing to the outer 10% fringe of their base, and isn't that nice because they're going to lose the 90% and that'll help Republicans win elections and conservatives, and that's all well and good, but that 10% is now fomenting violence and killing or trying to kill ICE agents, and it's not a funny political look at the Democrats just, destroying themselves again. That's not it anymore.
All right.
There is violence going on.
Next story.
All right. Well, not only do we have left-leaning people that are a little ignorant about the violence, we have economists that don't know what they're talking about either. So cities around the country are increasing their minimum wage. And this isn't just red cities and state or blue cities and states. Alaska, for example, is pumping up its minimum wage from $11.73 to $13 an hour.
Where is that?
In Alaska. It's going to reach $15 an hour.
Is there a city now?
That's a state.
Oh, state.
The state minimum wage in Alaska. In Oregon, they're raising.
That was a funny exchange. Tim was asking if there was a city, and you said no. Alaska's a state. I'm sorry, it just hit me as being funny.
In Oregon, they are raising the minimum wage. In Florida, they're actually raising the minimum wage. In total, 88 jurisdictions, 23 states, and 65 cities and counties will raise the minimum wage by the end of 2025. All right. So what they're thinking is we give these people that are working these minimum wage jobs not a living wage. We're going to try to give them a living wage. So let's go ahead and give them $15, $16 an hour. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Because now they will be able to afford maybe some more rent and everything. What do they not factor into this equation, Wesley?
No, I don't know.
They don't factor in that the people that pay the $15, $16 an hour have to get the money somewhere, so they got to charge you more when you walk into Dollar General or Target or whatever to buy your shampoo. They got to charge you more because they have to pay their employees more. That's called inflation.
I do know the answer to that part. That is called inflation.
Listen, this is the basic problem is that a lot of young people are having a hard time getting life on track in terms of they pay astronomical amounts for rent. They're still, some of them are still paying off college loans. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to buy a house. And politicians are wanting to appeal to them. So they are saying, well, we'll help you out. We will raise the minimum wage, because politicians oftentimes don't care what the consequences are as long as they get voted back into office. This is a foolish attempt to solve the economic problems, and it's just going to make the problems worse.
Yeah, I do like the fact that this is being handled on a state level, though, to the federal government.
Yeah.
So if the state of Florida, because the more local a decision is, the more responsive the elected officials will be to their decisions. Right. So, people of Florida want to give a minimum wage increase, that's up to them. I do understand the principle you're talking about, though, Steve, because when you raise mandatory pay, the businesses, they have to raise that money to pay the increase. And where are they going to get it from? They're going to get it from the customers, which makes prices go up for everybody.
I'll say one additional problem is that corporations and mom and pop stores handle this differently. Mom and pop stores, some of them are going to go out of business because their margins are already so small they can't afford to pay it. The increase in the minimum wage, and they're going to lose customers if they raise their prices, who are going to go to the big box stores, for example, to try to save money on what they're buying. So on the one hand, you're going to put small businesses out of business, and the corporations, I'll tell you the way they might wind up handling it is they'll say, fine, we're not going to use people at all. We're not going to pay
robots.
We're going to do robots, and then we're going to get rid of these jobs because then we don't have to pay anybody after the investment comes off our taxes.
Yeah. One
question.
Yeah.
Here, will McDonald's
improve?
Use and I had one of their quarter pounders the other day, and it was really good. It's McDonald's fresh. I'm talking about. It's an American institution, so I have nothing against McDonald's except this. I hold this against thee.
Yes.
I've heard it from Wesley knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I want to know: are they going to have a robot tell me that the ice cream machine is broke. Because that will be the ultimate insult, I think, to our intelligence.
And will the robot tell you that the ice cream machine is broke with a bad attitude?
Robot with a bad attitude.
Because I get the bad attitude stuff a lot. It doesn't
Right.
matter how much they raise the minimum wage.
Right.
I tell people, and I'm not talking about McDonald's. I'm just talking in general at fast food places. You get people interacting with you who just don't care.
Yeah.
Well, and if the robot has a conscience, unlike some of the employees, they'll tell you the truth and they'll say, we're cleaning.
Yes.
We've already cleaned it. That's what the ones that have been honest with me, I've been less frustrated. But a lot of times I'll go and they'll say, hey, we just cleaned it and we close in an hour. Now, I disagree with all of that.
Right.
But I can drive away without being mad because he told me the truth.
Right.
I just want somebody.
It can't be broke for 6 months.
I just want someone at McDonald's to say this. You know what? I know the ice cream's good, but cleaning it is really hard, and we don't want to do it.
Right.
So we just tell people it's broken so we don't have to mess with it.
If a robot tells me that the ice cream machine is down, that's when I say, ice cream machine, heal thyself.
Heal thyself.
Yeah, it should be a self-cleaning ice cream machine.
A robot can clean the machine as easy as it can tell me that it's down.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody ought to have to work in a fast food place for
I was going to say, when I was young, minimum wage jobs were so I could afford gas. I could get kind of a work ethic going. I got get the resume going. It wasn't supposed to be a living wage. I go to school, then I get a job as a plumber, or I go to college, and then I get the job that I'm living off of. But McDonald's was never meant for me to make a career out of.
Okay, boomer.
I'm about to show how much time we got left. Do you got something else? Because I'm about to show how far right I am if we keep going.
I can go. You want some good news?
Actually, how quickly can you do it so that Steve can still give us some good news?
I just want to know is minimum wage, I haven't had to think about this in a while, a forced minimum wage, is that even like true capitalism? Like forcing a company to pay a certain amount?
No,
it's not.
The history
it's not the free market.
The history is that child labor laws kids were being abused. They were being abused.
Yeah.
Capitalism is a great economic system, has done the most for the world. But my dad always said, your grandfather always said, capitalism undergirded by Christian principles.
That's right. That's what Steve McDowell would say.
Has provided the most wealth in the world history.
I agree with that.
With the most responsibility and the most care and compassion.
Right.
Go ahead, Steve. What do you got?
Are you guys traveling in the coming weeks? You get good news.
A few weeks, yeah.
Good news. If you're flying, you no longer have to take your shoes off at the airport.
That's why I pay for TSA pre-screen.
Well, now you get no advantage from that. I have that as well.
I know this is going to be weird because I always look over at the people in the regular line and say, I ain't taking off my shoes. But you have to.
But you still have to take off your belt and stuff, right?
We're getting to that.
I think Chris Unome, who announces, says that the technology is catching up to the point where they don't make you take off your shoes. And she didn't say this, but I think they can tell the difference between a belt and a gun.
Well, I always wondered, I do have the TSA pre-screen, which I pay for. You go through a shorter line, so you're expedited, although more and more people are doing that, so it's not so much of an advantage anymore. However, I've always wondered if in my line, I don't have to take off my shoes. But in the regular line, they do, and I'm going, what's the difference between the people?
You've been screened. Your background has been checked by TSA.
I know, but I could show up with some bad.
He could become radicalized.
That number can be revoked. By the way,
yeah, but after
I have TSA and my wife doesn't. This puts me in a very bad position.
Well, you need to give that to her for her birthday or something.
Well, Jesus, we got to get her to a place where she can apply for it.
You need to help her out right there.
I know, right?
That's right, man.
So when you get to the line, you look at each other and you go, honey, I'm going to have to
It was nice.
No.
Wow, Steve. How do you get away with that?
I'll be waiting on you.
I generally don't use the TSA number unless we're late and I have to get to the gate or I'm going to do something.
Honey, I'm going to go on the gate. I'll see you in an hour.
I'll see you.
Right.
We'll meet at Starbucks.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Ed. Wesley, far right, Wildmon.
There we
Radically
go.
right.
Radically right.
I'm going to radicalize you, and you're going to lose your TSA.
My thanks to Fred Jackson, Abraham Hamilton, and our producer, Brent Creeley. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.